This is the Amplify Your Business with Matt J. Hannam podcast, where I explore the entrepreneurial landscape and have candid conversations with inspiring individuals who are crushing it in their space. Today I welcome Sarah Blackah. Welcome to the show, Sarah. Sarah is an international speaker, facilitator, and women's intuitive and embodiment mentor. That's a bit of a tongue twister, but I like it. She's passionate about supporting women to love and own all of who they are, saying fuck it to perfection and getting them to a joy state. Sarah, welcome. And anything to add to that?
No, that was great. I was like, wow, you've stalked me and done your research well.
Yeah, it was in a newspaper somewhere that I saw. And I was like, it's in the community paper. Oh, I should get hold of Sarah. That sounds great.
I hope you don't mind F-bombs thrown out on your podcast.
F-bombs totally welcome. No problem. Authentic communication is 100% fine. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Awesome.
welcome. Thanks for joining us. I believe from what looks to be relatively sunny Melbourne at this point.
Oh, there's a bit of sun trying to get through. That's Melbourne for you, though.
Yeah, fantastic. So, look, we met at a William Whitecloud event 6 weeks or so ago, which was a pretty powerful event for me, and sounds like it had some good effect or some exciting different ways to look at things from yourself. But really, let's get into this thing. I mean, international speaker, facilitator, and women's intuitive and embodiment mentor. How do you say that in English?
What does all that mean? Yeah, well, I've been, I would say, like a lifestyle entrepreneur for 8 years. So since I read the 4-Hour Workweek, I was a bit screwed. I was like, right, I'm not going back to an office job. I'm creating my own path. And so, yeah, over those 8 years, that's evolved. Like I created a health and wellness business, which was, yeah, a really great way to build community and create that freedom lifestyle and live in Bali and do all that laptop lifestyle, sexy thing that, you know, people do. But as I went deeper with transformation and really what helps people have a sense of fulfillment and freedom in their lives, it led me to lots of crazy things that I've tried and studied in my time. But really what I have become passionate about and what you've now experienced is really helping people to, I mean, there's so much noise out there, as you know. How do we actually connect with what our true choices are in life and what our true vision is without everyone else telling us who we should be and what we should be doing? And so that's where my sort of interest was drawn to. And I believe developing your intuition is one of the most important skills you can do in the 21st century. And so I've really honed in on that. I love working with women. I've actually had a few men reach out recently, but specifically I generally work with women just because I've studied women a lot. I am a woman, but I've also really looked at the interesting role shifts that we're all witnessing with masculinity, femininity, what it is to be a woman and a man. So I just keep following my curiosity and learning and studying, and then I love to share that through speaking, traveling, mentoring, and bringing people together in real human form as well.
Cool. There's a lot in there, but one thing I want to dig into a bit deeper there, because it's something that I think is very topical. And you may or not be aware, may or may not be aware of my other podcast that I'm involved in, which is Simple Minds podcast, which is 5 guys that sit around and chat through conversations and try and open up awareness. I think for men, and we try and initiate conversation. One thing I think men are very bad at is communicating, certainly how they're feeling. Something that's come up a few times. Well, firstly, ironically, we designed the podcast for men, but it seems a lot more women listen to us talk about it, which is interesting. Yeah, but you mentioned women's role changing, and I was curious to see your perspective. And we've had long debates about masculinity and what that looks like and how that's evolving with women's roles changing. But I wouldn't mind you expanding on your thought process or how you view that at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a topic that I'm so passionate about and very interested about. And I think as a society as a whole, we're really asking a lot of questions around this at the moment, because we did see that swing out with the feminist movement, which was great in a lot of ways because it helped women have a sense of empowerment, and I can earn my own income, and I can have my own job and sense of independence. But from my personal perspective and a lot of, the work I've delved into, I feel like it swung out too far. And then the nature and the dynamic of relationship and the home environment, I think it's sort of wobbled the foundations of home. And so I think women stepping into these roles then also had men questioning, well, where do we sit? And then men are going on their own journey of how do we express our feelings and connect to our own sense of femininity and softness, but without becoming too soft, or like, not that they're, and within that there's no right or wrong, because we could go on for this for ages. But personally, where I sit with it is, I feel like, I know in my own journey, I think I swung too far the other way, and I took on quite a masculine role to have success in business, but hence what led me to women's embodiment, because I was burning out and I was exhausted, and I was attracting more feminine men when really I just wanted to be soft and surrender and still have my thing in the world, but have a man that's a man and can hold me. And, still there's this big part of me that was like, oh, I get why we sort of are naturally suited to roles. And, I have still a yearning to be a mother and just, take care of the home and cook the food, and like almost go back to the quite traditional way of how the home environment used to work. So I've been on my own journey seeing the swing out and coming back to that more balanced place. And I know a lot of men that have also been, figuring out where they fit. And obviously for a relationship intimately to be successful, there needs to be polarity. And so I think it's a really interesting time, and the harmonizing of those relationships. And I think most important is to know what's authentic, because nothing's right or wrong, but where do you authentically want to sit in your gender and in your, what is your essence? What's your true essence of where you want to sit, and then attracting relationships that's a good fit for that. That's sort of where I sit now, because I would love to be, I'm moving more into that feminine role, and there's still things I want to do in the world. So it's an interesting balance.
It is really interesting an observation as well. Not just observation, because I've clearly had the same questions on my side of the equation as well, from the masculine point of view, and then to what extent are we what the more traditional masculine is versus then having more balanced relationships and working it out. But it really is a place where we're very lost, and that sounds very polarizing. And from what I believe I know about your past is that you worked in a corporate environment and were in that sort of space, and probably, if I was to guess, in essence, you were very were behaving very masculine and driving and going through that growth process. What happened? Like at what point did you go, fuck this? Or what was it that sort of where you started to think, hang on, no? Because I actually do think that probably almost all of us have the capacity to run one of 3 or 4 different lines. And so I've done the heavily corporate thing. I still have a small business and work with bigger businesses and things like that now, but it's very different to what it was before. I wear a black t-shirt to work these days. So that's even different in itself. There's another version of me that could be far more involved in, I guess, coaching and mentoring and other aspects. And I do elements of that, but it's largely not how I make a living. But even I have 3 or 4 versions of myself, and I think we all do. And certainly I see that real struggle with women. I've seen that even with my wife Tash, and we've now got 3 young kids, but she still has a desire to be working and doing other things, but a very strong desire to obviously be the mother of the household and be a mother to our children and all that. And I see that balancing act, and I know a lot of business women who are like, how do I do all of it and be all of it. Where did the journey start for you? Like, how did you start to make some action or some shifts in your thinking, or was it the pick a book up moment, or do we just is it something that gradually evolves?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I really love what you just shared about there's different lines that we can take, and I definitely agree with that. And that's what led me to sort of wounds work as well. What are these true choices for us? But yeah, for me, it was even to shift from corporate, because I knew corporate wasn't serving me. And I think fundamentally for a lot of women, some of those systems don't really serve women's natural rhythms. That's my personal opinion. But I made a run for my own business to move out of corporate. And so I went pretty hard for a few years driving business. And that was great because it got me to create like a 6-figure residual income, which then bought me the time and space to soften and relax. Because when I got there, it was like the epitome of success and blah, 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 but I was cooked. And the big thing, to touch on what you just shared, was I realized I was burning intimate relationships because of my drive for this business and this freedom and purpose. I was choosing that over connection, intimacy, and romance. And so, you get to where you want to be, and then you're like, oh, this is a bit lonely. There's no one to share it with. And so then I started to see the ways that I had actually viewed what femininity was, and that it was weak, and that it was this and that. And so I had a lot of ideas around what I thought it was to be a woman. And so I did a lot of work to really decondition that. And now I work with women and female leadership, and I'm really big on knowing what's most important to you, because we can't be everything to everyone or we'll go nuts. But yeah, what is really most meaningful, and how can we do that in a more slower, sustainable, enjoyable way, rather than this burn the bridges, hustle, burn out, cook yourself kind of energy.
Oh, as much as I love Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah.
Oh God, that's not really
No. Yeah. So can I just get a bit more information there? So what did you do in corporate?
I think I've always been in coaching. I was doing wellness and employee engagement programs in corporates. Okay. So like mining companies, BHP, places like that. We'd go in and we'd work with people from the ground level through to high level executives, and just really, coaching them around their health, their lifestyle balance. And I think, to be honest, that's where I first really started to get that, like, doesn't matter how much you're making, doesn't matter if you're not doing what you really love, that has such a fundamental impact on your well-being and your happiness. And I saw that on such a core level that I really realized that when we're lined up with what's most meaningful to us, we're most happy and most fulfilled. And yeah.
Okay. So then you left that space to start a business in this exact category, or did you have another business in the meantime? So you moved straight into wellness?
Yeah. So I had a health and lifestyle business. It was kind of like it was a network marketing business, but that was what shifted me from the corporate to, we created a community of like 6,000 people, and everyone was getting healthy and creating income and creating freedom, and it was really fun. But again, I just I did that for sort of 3 or 4 years, but I keep following what's true for me, and things change over time, as you probably know. So I went to more the retreats and personal coaching.
Cool. So when someone just decides to do a retreat for the first time, and I might be asking out of some interested party, how do they? What makes you jump into a retreat, and sort of how do you go about what you're looking to achieve? Because I think things like retreats, events, which I've started to do some event type work as well. But I'm certainly asking from myself, and I think a lot of other businesses. We're now sort of building communities and doing things a little differently. And these are types of things. How do you? I mean, I guess a couple of questions are in there, but how do you go about achieving what you want from it, designing it to provide you with that success, and I guess what do you consider successable for these types or for an event?
For me personally, or for the people
you
attending?
Well,
both.
Well, it depends. I mean, it's both really, I guess, because obviously, I would assume that success for you would mean that the attendees have a successful experience.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a really good question. I personally think events and retreats are really called for at this time again, because we're getting so flooded with stuff online that we're craving this in-person connection. And so I love doing in person because I'm craving that as well. And so in terms of success, really people that are attending events and are attracted to an event, for my especially transformational ones, it's because they're aware that what they're doing in their life isn't working for them anymore. And maybe it did, but they generally feel stuck, confused, overwhelmed, and they can feel the part of them that's ready for something else. But what I find, especially with a retreat, because they're in the same environment day in, day out, same thinking, same people, same info, it's very hard to shift from that space. Whereas when you take them on an immersion right out of their normal day-to-day life, they're in a beautiful location, generally in nature, they're off their phones, they're out of that grind, they can come, especially when you're doing practices that are more expanding consciousness, and they've got space to like relax the nervous system, because our nervous systems these days are so on. They can give space to actually hear themselves, and maybe especially with tools and practices to get clearer on like, okay, what do I want in this next phase of life? Because we're constantly evolving and changing. So to me, that's why people would attend a retreat. That's why I love running retreats. And the success to me looks like having an incredible group of people there that always have a breakthrough to come home with a real practical thing that they're going to change in their life. So some people leave jobs, start businesses, end relationships and things like that, because they may have known for years that they're not right, but it's given them the clarity and the courage to go and actually do something about that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, right. No, it's a fair point. I mean, I've been to a lot of different types of events, and you've got your one-day event in your own place, or I'm from Perth, right? As we've talked about a few times. So the beauty of Perth, in a few ways, or one of the downsides is not everyone comes here. One of the good things about it is when you go to an event, you generally have to fly at least 4 hours to get to it.
Which get that fresh energy.
Well, which is actually a blessing in a way, because it does give you that chance to sort of just step out of your own environment. I go to, say, multi-day events, and William Whiteclouds was a great example.
So
and
great.
it was great to be staying close to the venue, and not having to sort of go back to typical day-to-day life. I mean, not that I want to spend time away from my family necessarily, but it's just you go and you focus on it, and it's a good thing. Whereas I see other people, they might rock in late the next morning because they've the dog ate someone's homework or whatever it is. But you're still at home, and you're not out of the space. And to me, that makes almost any event I go to a retreat as such, because you have to travel there. So it's really cool. But I do notice a very big difference when it is away, and I can and I often get a lot more out of it, rather than just thinking, oh, do I get back to the office and sneak a bit of work in, or otherwise. So that's cool. So that's how you get a breakthrough from them. So then what what makes it successful for you?
Well, I mean, sometimes I feel like my work's a little bit I was going to use the word selfish. It's not selfish. I love what I do, and I create experiences that I enjoy. So as a facilitator, I choose beautiful locations and, you know, movement practices and things that I love to teach and that have obviously really helped me. In sharing that, I think that's where, I mean, I'm sure you love talking to people. That's why you do a podcast. So, yeah, for me, it's successful when I'm doing what I love. People are there getting a lot out of it. And, yeah, it's a shared experience. I'm very aware this is a shift as well, that like, I think we're moving away from the days of like the gurus and you've got my answers. I think it's like our role as event coordinators is like, how do we create an incredible shared experience that everyone wins? And that's to me a successful event.
Well, we have so much information now, right? And
Yeah.
really it's all about who can help us. It's not even, I think you're right. It's not even who can distill it down for us anymore. It's who can create an experience so I can actually feel it.
Yes, that's
because
exactly what it is.
There's just, we have so much data, which is amazing. But like, I don't know about you, but when I get stuck on a topic, I'm over analyzing it, and I can read and watch videos till the end of, till I procrastinate myself to death. You know, whereas if you can get out somewhere, get some release from you know the office or home or whatever, and actually feel an experience and understand the difference on a I guess a more physical level, so to speak, then you can actually create some change. Or not that, I mean, it's talking about all that at a very top line level, but it gives you the opportunity to breathe, I suppose, and get some.
I think that's really what people need is less.
Yeah.
Less info, like more space.
So just turn the internet off for 24 hours and give everyone's head a break. We're doing it, right? We do it with our phones. You know, we don't turn off.
And having fun, I think that's such a key piece too. Like, people want opportunities. Like, why are we here? For an epic human experience. So people want to touch things and taste things they've never felt, and you know, it's new and exciting and playful experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was a reason why I took the blue pill, right? I mean, surely. So, it's possible, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, we could be in the Matrix, and I'm sure I would want to go and experience life. So you're exactly right, and we've created one experience, but that many of us are very much bound to at the moment, and that shit's real. Like, you've got to pay your bills. You know, I've got 3 little kids. Many people have many expectations, employees. You know, there's things that need to be met, but you don't have to get stuck in that necessarily. So I've got a quote from you from a podcast that you did. And I wanted to dig into that.
You have done your research. Wow.
Well, I mean, you don't get on my show without me doing something. If this ever gets put to public, you know, who knows? No,
who knows?
I'm just teasing. No, but I just thought it was. I heard you speaking, and I thought, look, it would be it'd be good to just talk about this. But you jumped into, which is, we're talking about intuition, effectively, intuitive processes. But the hows are where we get bogged down when we allow ourselves to be guided by something bigger than ourselves, and we align with a love for ourselves. Magical things can start to open up for us when we do. So don't know if you remember saying that. I'll send you the link just in case you forgot you said it. But no, I like, clearly that sounds like some content that's very similar to what I heard from William Whitecloud, but also this was recorded prior to that, and I just thought it would be a good opportunity to explain it. It sounds like that's where you found yourself in a position of overwhelm or inaction, and I'd love you to dig into that concept.
For sure. Well, yeah, I mean, you've been led to William's work, and it's been really game-changing for me, because I realised a lot of the things I had created in my life was still from what he calls a negative vision, which is still, you know, an element of trying to prove, even if you think you're doing a great thing for the world, it was still often coming from, I'm not good enough to do what I really want to do, so I'll do this instead. So when I started doing this work, I started making true choices for what I would love to do, without any limitations based on, I couldn't do that because, you know, like, I had to let that all go. But when I chose those true choices, all that shit comes up of like, but how would I do that? And I don't know how, like, I'm not good enough. All that comes up. But because I knew it was true for me, I committed to it anyway. And so what I see when I work with clients, and, you know, what you probably saw or got a sense of in that room, it's quite scary to go for what you truly love in life. And I think nothing is more rewarding and nothing will bring you more joy and sense of fulfillment than going for what you truly love. Like, even when you were chatting about the retreat you want to run, I see you light up, right? And so often I see that with clients, they light up when we click into what it is they would love. But so many of these day-to-day things get in the way of that. But I need to do this first and make this money, or there's so many things that we kind of write off those dreams. So the intuitive work, we let that all go and we just keep choosing the end result of what we want to create, holding our focus there. And that is when literally the right people, opportunities, situations come up, and it can unfold quite magically because we're outside that paradigm of our old belief system. And so I've seen that a lot this year, and seeing it a lot more with my clients. And it's just a really fun way to live.
I bet it is. Without no, I don't just bet it is. Like, you know, even, I mean, obviously my exposure to more of this type of work has been much more recent, but I think it's nothing that we all haven't experienced from time to time in our life, well, if not at all the times in our life. It's just whether or not we've had the awareness of how we've created. But
yeah.
Do you have a client experience that you could potentially share with us, that without naming names, of perhaps where they were and how you're able to see some transformation, and you know, not to spruik what you're doing, so to speak, and I know you wouldn't, but I'm just for everyone listening that, you know, this is when you have a bit more awareness, when you can have a bit more awareness and be mindful of what you're doing. It's amazing how powerful that we can be in creating. And I'd love to get a story from one of your clients.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to share, because there's a process around this as well. Like, magic has structures to it, and I think people can think it sounds fluffy, but there's as you know, there's structural integrity for this new way to create. And so, I had a client reach out. I think she found me on social media, and we jumped on the phone, and she's like, I'm just really stuck and I'm getting highly anxious in my job, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do. And she was very anxious, very stressed, very frustrated. So she jumped into working with me over a 4-month period. And over that time, again, early sessions, we helped her get clear on what she really wanted. And that in itself is very freeing for people, just to actually have someone else reflect back to them from an intuitive perspective who doesn't know them. This is what I see for you. And they're like, holy shit, that's what I've always wanted. And you're like, permission granted, choose it. And so as soon as she chose what it was for her, it was actually to start her own social media branding company. And
terrible idea.
Idea.
What is she thinking?
That was her dream. But anyway, she quit her, within that 4 months, she quit her job, started her own business, and tripled her income in 4 months.
Yeah.
And to me, like, and she loves it. She's like, you know, maybe not our thing, but
well, we do it every day, but you know.
Well, yeah, you do it. Yeah, not your thing. Well, it is your thing. But anyway, and to me, that's just such a cool example of when you honor what's true for you, how quickly things can kind of shift, because you're in alignment. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're going for what you love.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote, which I think it's Floyd Mayweather Jr. Which, not that it necessarily. Well, he's a boxer, but not that it matters where he necessarily comes from. But it's just a very simple quote that could relate to anybody or anything, and it's just: is it a dream or a goal?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and there's a big difference, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to quote one back at you quickly.
Yeah, sure.
From Jim Carrey's documentary, I think it is, really hit me. He's like, I think his dad never did what he loved.
Yeah.
and failed anyway. And he's like,
he was an accountant, which I
yes.
also know about. I started life there. So
Yes, well, you would have loved this quote too then, where
Yeah.
he's like, you can fail at what you don't love, so you may as well do what you do love. And it's like, boom, mic drop moment. It's like, yeah, nothing's guaranteed, so we may as well go for what we love.
Well, you're actually more likely to fail at what you don't love as well,
Exactly.
which is the irony. But we're such fear consumed beings that we just, for some reason, we just follow that standard path. And for some reason, that accountant piece looks like the right thing to do. And look, I was there. I did that out of not knowing what to do. It seemed like an easy choice, mainly because I thought I could then do other things. Like every business needs an accountant, I suppose, so I could go wherever. But I get it, and he did. I think his dad really struggled. I think his dad, to follow on from the story, I think he was made redundant. Or something like that earlier in his life, and was never able to really fulfill much more work from that point. So, but that was his experience, and that was his belief, and that's what he'd passed on, to Jim, who's a pretty special human being, if he is one at all. I'm not sure.
I'm not convinced. I think he's from somewhere else, definitely.
But he's incredible, and that's a great quote as well, and it's true. So it's there is every opportunity to fail. And because as well, I think the fact that, when it's tough, when the going's tough, if it's something you love and really, really, really deeply want to achieve, you're going to find a bit more to give. And I think that's the part that makes it so interesting. If you're just doing someone's tax return, and if that's not deeply passionate for you.
There's some people out there that
there are. Look, believe me, there are. Because I know a lot of accountants. Many of them are very unhappy. Many of them are not. Some love it, and that's completely fine. It's what they love. It's great. I met one on the weekend. I hadn't seen him for 20 years, and he's like, I love it. I love what I do. He was going to be an IT. I was going to be an IT guy, and now he's an accountant, and he loves it, and that's cool. But we can fail as well, well, we probably will. So what I'd like to know is, this has all sounded really good so far, but whether it's been in the wellness business, sounds like you're involved in some network marketing, or perhaps in the retreat space, I'd love to dig into some of the challenges that you've experienced there and how you've overcome them, because I know from a more traditional business standpoint, people feel like they can't integrate some of what, say, someone like yourself in your type of business, can work on, and they can't integrate it. Their business is old school. They can't, there's a lot of that mindset, but I don't think there's that much of a bridge between the two, other than just sparking some or bringing more vision and purpose to what you're doing. But I'd love to dig into maybe a big challenge or a couple of big challenges that you've had, because they're just like everyone else's, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Some of the biggest challenges I've had, look, I think it's always the nature of life is we go through phases of like creation and then destruction. And that destruction needs to happen in order to create something new, right? And so I think it was really challenging for me when I poured a lot of love in like 3 or 4 years into building a business and a community, but then knowing deep down, this is where the intuitive piece comes in, that it wasn't right. Like I was getting flat and tired and depressed, and I couldn't keep pushing that anymore. So when I had to let that go, I felt a lot of like guilt and shame and failure, and I'm letting people down. And I tried for quite a long time to overcome my own inner knowing because of letting people down and hurting people, or all that stuff. So I kept pushing, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So my biggest, like, it felt like a failure because I'd done well, but then the unraveling of that was very messy, and internally I struggled a lot with feelings of failure, and I could have done this, or just a lot of inner feelings of guilt, shame and failure, and that I'd let people down. That was the biggest thing I really felt. I've let people down. So in terms of a learning, I think it's so important that we're in our own alignment, and we have to trust that that's also what's best for people around us as well. And sometimes that does mean having the hard, honest, we were talking about this earlier, having those really honest conversations with people. So I've learned a lot about real communication, and it's the only way, because we're going to change and pivot in our lives, and we have to be okay with that. And yeah, I'd say that was a really challenging time though, with so many shoulds and coulds and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to go into a bit of a random couple of questions to change pace briefly. But if you had the opportunity to take one book into solitary confinement for a year, what would you take with you?
Solitary confinement, that's a great question. To be honest, it would probably be one of William's books.
Oh wow! Better let him know. giant plug there.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest here and say I've read a lot of books, but I'm one of those like 3/4 readers, and then I get on to the next one because I get excited.
Yep.
But I've finished all of William's books, so that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. So which would it be?
Probably still The Magician's Way, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
he's getting quite a plug today.
He's getting quite a plug. I know. I might have to edit this out. No. Look, I mean, it's good. It's a recent experience, obviously, that we've both been on, spent some time with him as well. But look, I stand by it. I mean, one of the books that was actually the basis for our entire Simple Minds podcast, structuring and something that I'd used for many years as a gift and things before, is The Alchemist. And in some ways there's some similarities between that and Magician's Way, and obviously alchemy is in the title and all those things as well. And so it is what it is. And I don't know whether that's the book I would take necessarily, but it's William's work's fantastic. But it's as he even says himself, he doesn't take full credit for a lot of it. It's just a collection of things that he's been able to uncover. And much of it is very ancient, which is in some ways all the more powerful.
Absolutely.
So as well. So if you had to be or who's your favorite Disney character?
Oh my gosh. Disney character. Probably Goofy.
I love it. That question tells me something about someone all the time. Yeah, exactly.
I am pretty I've got a few modes, but one of them is I'm pretty unco and goofy at times. So
There's so many characters, and someone always you always pick someone you identify with in a way.
God, that's too.
That's great. That's a good one. I haven't had that one before, so that's.
There you go.
So I wanted to chat a bit about the Bali thing. So you lived in Bali for how long?
I've lived there for a year twice.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, definitely, as Aussies, for the rest of the world. If you don't know, a lot of Aussies are like, "Hey, we're going to pick up and we're going to move to Bali, and life's going to be better." Yeah. So I want to dig into that because I have a few times lately. I've come across a lot of people. Actually, someone a friend who was recently on the podcast as well, which I don't think's been released yet, is Carolyn Zanetti, who I think you're friends. Yeah. You're friends as well.
Yeah, I'm friends with her. How funny!
So were you guys in Bali at the same time?
We were. That's actually sort of where we met. How hilarious!
All right. So tell me about Bali. Is it really everything it's cracked up to be? And what did you get from it? From that experience?
Look, I'm going to just drop total truth bombs here.
That's what I'd prefer.
I know. It did drive me to build the business because I had this fantasy and illusion of the Bali lifestyle. And I'm not going to lie, it is beautiful and there's great food and there's yoga and there's all the things. But you do realize wherever I go, there I am. And I did realize in some ways how, yeah, I was trying to not, I could almost use the word escape. Like I thought life would be a bit different there, but it's not really. You're the same wherever you are. And I think a lot of people do kind of realize that it is very magical and there's some great things to it. But for me, if you're there too long, it becomes a bit of a bubble, and it becomes a bit, because everyone there's about like breaking free of the system and screw the system and freedom and all that kind of thing, which there's an element to that. But I think if you're there too long, it becomes a bit removed from the rest of the world and what's really going on. So I've actually really enjoyed being back in Australia and being on the ground and, you know, what's really going on here, and like, how do we help and how do we serve, and being with community that isn't transient, you know, family, friends. That there's a lot to be said for structures and cleanliness.
So would it be fair to say that that was a negative vision in a way then? Like it was, you know, obviously an amazing experience, but largely you were trying to get away?
Yeah, I think I was, but I didn't think I was.
Oh, we never do, right? At the time.
We didn't. And I mean, now I still will continue to take groups on retreat there, but very much with that message of come here, have a beautiful experience, and realize that the fulfillment is in true choices. And
Cool. Well, that leads me perfectly into where I was hoping to go now, and I just wanted to get a feel for, you know, these events that you run, and I think you've got one coming up in December. Is that right? You are good on your research. No, I've got an event here. I'll put this out in January, so don't worry about it.
I've got an event coming up in Melbourne on the 15th of December. They're for women. Sorry, fellas.
That's all right. Can I wear it? Yeah, can I?
Yes. Hey, you know Nick from the event?
I do, yeah.
That's how I met him. He rocked up at one of my women's events thinking it was for everybody. And then we became friends. I was like, sure, you can stay. So it has happened. So yeah, there's an event in Melbourne, and then I'll be doing a retreat in March in Bali. And it's a female leadership retreat.
Fantastic. So fair enough. That's not for me, but it doesn't sound like I'm allowed in. Maybe to serve cocktails or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we could you could get a group of men together, and you can be our waiters or something like that. That'd be nice.
Yeah. No, it sounds great. So look, talk me through it. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I'm teasing, but it's completely fine. I think it's a good thing. I mean, look, we run a podcast which talks about guys and guys' issues, and I think that's okay to, you know, we don't always have to be creating everything for everyone, right?
Yes, totally.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But so talk me through it. I mean, what are you doing with these women, and what you know, what sort of is the change that you're hoping to have in their world?
Yeah, well, it's secret women's business. So what happens?
Okay,
I'm only joking.
Men don't.
It's like a Fight Club. What happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club. No. It's it's a journey, and I really tailor it to. At the core of it, I would say it's about connection and women coming back to their truth and their true choices in life. That's a huge part of it. But again, having that space to slow down, to empty out all the noise and everything. So it's less about filling with more information and more about unraveling and letting go. And obviously it's healthy food and pampering and all the stuff women love. A lot of what they love about it is the level of real connection and conversation that's had. And we go deeper, so they get to the core of what it's about for them in life right now. And like I said, that often means they have a lot of clarity and breakthroughs and realizations. And then it's really, I'm big on practical, how is life going to change from here? And sometimes that's up leveling and getting them to like get uncomfortable and step into things. And sometimes it's coming home and realizing that it's a stage for some things that no longer serve them to fall away. So always there's, and to be sort of support, I think we need each other to support women particularly, and men as well. We need support in making changes, because it's too tempting to go back to what's known. So there's a lot of shifts that happen afterwards, but it all results in them feeling a lot freer within themselves and more empowered.
Yeah, cool. And you've been doing this for a while now. So is it a fairly, how do you structure these? Is it a fairly intimate type setting, or how do you, do you run this in a private resort, or how do you sort of go about creating this experience?
Yeah, good question again. Well, obviously it's always in beautiful locations because women love beauty. So that's important. And I like to run retreats for about 12 people, sometimes up to 15, not normally. It's normally around 10 to 12 people, and that's just a really good number, so that everyone, especially as a facilitator, so that, it's a lot when you start taking bigger groups and there's just sort of one of you or two of you. So, I like 12's my magic number.
The magic number. So you better get in quick, anyone who wants to, because if it's coming up in March, it's a long way out. So that's cool. It's I mean, that is a very intimate group. I mean, that's I can see how you've got no choice but to form some pretty strong bonds if you're going to spend a few days together like that.
Yeah. I mean, I do go up to 15, and then if it's more than that, you need a few facilitators, but if it's just sort of me hosting it, 12.
Cool. So the question I ask people is, how can they get amplified in life? And I guess that can be business, that can be anything. But what is the one thing that people should do to take a step forward and get amplified in life?
Oh, great question. Connect in, and I hope this makes sense to people listening, but connect in with what your true choices are in life. Doesn't matter if they're big, if they're scary, if they're weird or different. Once you connect in with what your heart gets you excited in life, if you follow your excitement, I think that's a really good sign. And just say yes to it, and not needing to figure it out, but saying, yes, I choose this, and moving towards it. To me, that's the quickest way to elevate your life or amplify your life, because it gives you the most energy and the most joy and the most inspiration. That's when you get out of bed and you're like, yes, you're inspired, and it actually up levels a lot of other areas of your life as well. So relationships, health, because, it's that inspiration. It sort of gets a hold of you. So that's my tip.
Awesome. So basically, I mean, choices in any other languages, your true goals, your true desires, what your true outcomes, your true wishes are, people. So, and I think that what the point you're also making there is that a lot of us might quickly write some goals down, or not really put enough time into truly uncovering what it is we actually want versus what perhaps is expected of us, or is clouded by a lot of other just life and noise that can be in the way. So super powerful. Thank you so much.
I was just going to say, last thing, especially coming into New Year's, if you don't set something that lights you up, don't even bother choosing a shit New Year's goal, because it's just depressing and you'll self-sabotage.
Well, you're just going to fail no matter what.
Exactly.
I mean, I love the we usually set extreme extreme changes, right? Without really any good way of following through with it. Yeah. And then by February, it's like, what happened to those goals? They're long gone.
Hilarious.
Oh, no, fantastic. But so look, thank you so much for being on the show.
Loved it.
I've really enjoyed having you on, and where can people find out a bit more about you? Obviously, your mentoring and coaching, which is hopefully there's some availability there, maybe, and or this event sounds amazing in March, and where can they find out about that?
Yeah, so they can just follow me on Facebook. So that's at Sarah Jane. I don't know if you've got show notes that you can put it in there or something. And then also I've got a website, sarahblackah.com. and Instagram as well, all the standard
stuff, and it's all Sarah, SARAH BLACKAH,
and on Facebook it's Sarah JAANE, just to trick you.
Just to trick everyone. What you have to do is magically
just to make
find.
your research a bit harder.
You have to magically find Sarah. Just to hopefully, no, she's very findable. Everything, all of my content will be linked up, but obviously anyone listening, they just need to look that up. And the event is all just via, if they look on your page as well.
Yeah, I'll put it up on there. It's going to be a public event. It's called Awaken Leadership.
Yep.
And so if they look that up on Facebook in Melbourne, they should find Awaken Leadership on there too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again very much for coming on the show. I've enjoyed connecting and chatting.
Yeah,
so,
it's been great.
It's been cool. But
you're doing some good work. I think podcasts, like I said, I'm inspired by podcasts. Such a great way to get your message out there and connect, and it's great.
And it's fun. It's just it's just fun. It's easy. You know, it's good fun. So anyone else listening, you know my message. It's like podcast. But
Well, I will chat to you. So once we're finished, I need to chat to you about that.
All right, cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, look, thanks so much. And guys, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this interview. Cheers.